find it fascinating that 2 years into a full-blown genocide, two idiots decide to interview the same person in charge of this genocide and infanticide and a campaign of starvation where people are being starved to death inside of the Gaza Strip, like these two idiots over here. The Nelk boys, they're called, with the Full Send podcast. They had a full-blown interview with Benjamin Netanyahu when he visited the United States. I wanted to have a look at this video with you and discuss a few very important things, because when you talk about people bringing a war criminal to an interview, the act itself, whether they portray it as an act of journalism, whether they portray it as an act of interrogation, whatever you want to call it, the act itself has a lot of meanings and sends a very strong message. Let's go ahead and see what they said.
This is fucking nuts.
First, they said that it was recorded on the 8th of July, several weeks back.
This is so crazy. We are so not qualified to do this.
No,
That's what's interesting.
They start off by saying we're so crazy and we're not qualified to do this. Why are you doing it then? If you're not qualified, then it's so crazy. And look at the facial expressions.
Thing about this, we just should not be doing this.
Well, we're too far too gone.
Here we have the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. He's about to walk into the podcast right now. This is probably one of the most, if not the most controversial podcast we
For sure the most
have ever done.
They clearly know what they're doing. So either they were pressured to do it, by the way, because these people brought Donald Trump before the elections. So something stinks here. Either someone pressured them to do it or offered them like something very substantial to do it, because you know the situation with the Netanyahu in Israel. These people are being delegitimized throughout the whole world, and they're trying to find some legitimacy. Something that I've been talking about, by the way, for some time now, the fact that they're trying to find their way through social media to counter the narrative, which is the popular narrative and the truth narrative against genocide.
Yeah, 100%.
Maybe not the most controversial we'll ever do.
Maybe not.
But
maybe though.
I mean, this issue is just like, and by the way, I want to say too, I'm not claiming to be an expert on this issue or anything like that. I've kind of just probably like a lot of you guys that, you know, you read stuff online. And I feel like on the internet now too, it's like, you don't even know what's real anymore. Like you read shit and it's
one thing here, willful ignorance. Oh, you don't know what's real anymore. What do you mean you don't know what's real anymore? Everything is available online. What's more real than people live streaming a campaign of starvation and a full-blown genocide? You idiot. What's clearer than that? So they're trying to pretend like they're ignorant to justify the fact that they're bringing the modern day, far worse version than Hitler himself to their podcast to start talking, spewing venom and garbage and the typical victimhood card and anti-Semitism and all of that nonsense. So we'll get to Benjamin Netanyahu in a second, by the way, because it's a 1 hour long interview.
It's like you see a headline and it's like, is this true? Is this not true? So I see so much stuff about, you know, what's going on in Israel and, you know, Iran and Palestine. And to be honest, I just really don't know what is going on there. So it's going to be interesting to sit down with Prime Minister.
So I really don't know, although we're living in an era of open information, availability of almost every single bit of information that you want. Yeah, of course, not everything, but we have the internet, we have AI, we have every source that we want to resort to, whether it's mainstream media, alternative media, verification, know what's right and what's wrong, do our due diligence. You're claiming to be journalist, or you're guessing that you're a journalist. Do some homework. So we don't know. And guess what we're going to do? We're going to bring the war criminal himself in charge of all of the crimes to come and explain to us the situation. Are you kidding me? Are you trying to pretend like you're being independent here and asking Benjamin Netanyahu about the crimes that he's committing inside of the Gaza Strip? What are you talking about?
Netanyahu and kind of just ask him some questions about what we read online and
get educated.
Probably going to be a lot of hate in the comments and stuff like that. In my opinion, I mean, dude,
we're journalists, right?
We're technically journalists.
How can you pass up this opportunity at the end of the day?
No, and plus, at the end of the day, it's like we get the opportunity to sit down with one of the most powerful people in the world, a world leader.
Yeah.
And we get to ask him some stuff, and we're going to ask him what we want to ask him too. So if you guys, want to hear shit, whatever questions you guys want to hear, there's probably a ton of other interviews of him on CNN or typical news stuff. We're going to ask him what we want to ask him. So to me, this is crazy. Like how far we've come, and we're going
to ask him what we want to ask him. By the way, they're not going to be asking him many questions. By the way, it's just going to be a platform for Benjamin Netanyahu. And if you want, you can go and check other things that other people asked him. So it's not really about asking or knowing, because you claim you didn't know and you want to know more. So it's not about that. It's about giving the man a platform. And they knew they were about to get hate, rightfully so, because of their conduct. And they're still doing it.
Sit down with world leaders.
Yeah.
It's fucking insane. So.
Yeah. I mean, for any backlash, this is just an opportunity, again, you can't really pass up. I don't see it. Like, there's no one else doing this.
Yeah, I don't give a shit. I'll sit down with any world leader in the world.
I agree.
I mean, my dream guest is Kim Jong-un.
Both of
Kim Jong-un, if you're watching this.
This is kind of like
to come to North Korea and interview you.
All I can think about is the interview when we're doing
I'm so down to pull up to Moscow and interview Putin too.
Yeah. We'll do everybody.
This is what sets off podcasts. You could put a small microphone here, but no, you have to see this thing, right?
Yeah. Prime Minister Netanyahu with us today. We're here in the Blair House.
Yep.
Right? Is this the White House grounds?
Close. It's the sort of the official guest house of the United States.
How have you seen like the White House and stuff? Like, how has it evolved over the years, over the times of you visiting it?
I've met quite a few of the American presidents because I've been in office pretty long time. Not because we don't have elections, but because I've won quite a few of them, okay? I think there's never been a friend like Donald Trump in the White House for Israel. I think he's a remarkable leader. I think he's changing history. He said he'll make America great again. He's already done it. America is widely admired now around the world. And especially after our joint operation against this regime that wanted to, chance death to America, death to Israel. Well, I think together we've shown the world a different face of America. Very powerful, very directed, very resolute.
You guys are very tight, right? Would you call it a bromance?
Well, you might. I mean, we've known each other several decades, and I really like him.
What do you like most about him?
If you meet him close up, and Sarah and I have had this opportunity many times, including last night in a great dinner we had at the White House. First of all, Donald Trump can be very funny.
Of course.
He can be very funny.
Especially off camera, right?
He can split you sort of sit there and you start guffawing because it's so funny. And also, I'll tell you something else. That Sarah, who's a psychologist, and she, psychologists, psychologists?
Of course.
They look at people. They identify very quickly with that. You know what she said to me about Donald Trump? She said, he's a good person. He has a good heart. He wants to do good. And that is something that I think that...
That's a very important point, by the way. Netanyahu's wife is identifying that Donald Trump is a good person. I mean, what more do you need than that? If you're a fan of Donald Trump, you have the wife of Netanyahu saying that he's a good person.
You have to know him well to appreciate it. And the last thing I tell you about him, okay? I mean, I can tell you many things, but he cuts through the chase. He cuts through the BS. I have to spell out what BS is. He cuts through the BS. He goes right to the point, to the heart of the matter. And sometimes he says things that get right to the things that people don't want to really think through. And he cuts to the bone. And that is an amazing quality because it lets you focus on the things that are important. So it's been an incredible partnership, both personally, but also for our two nations.
Did you have any type of relationship with Biden?
Not the same. I've known Biden for, 40 years? Almost as long. Well, both of them. Over the decades, it was a different relationship. it was a friendship, but also it evolved into, how shall I say this, severe disagreements.
Mhm.
And with Donald Trump, we've had powerful agreements. And where there's no daylight between an American president and an Israeli prime minister, amazing things can happen. Like our common enemies who chant death to Israel, death to America, and want to develop atomic bombs and the means to deliver them to this city and to every part of America. All of a sudden, they're not so intimidating. All of a sudden, we can defeat them. All of a sudden, you can use these brave American pilots who come from around the world, drop it right over the bunker, and help us end the amazing feats of our soldiers and pilots. That's an amazing thing. It's good for America. It's good for the security of every single American.
How do you feel about the Americans' opinion on Israel right now?
Well, look, I think the broad segments of the American public support Israel, but I'm concerned that the young people in America, some of them are getting the wrong picture of Israel, vilification, demonization. You can feed them a lot of lies. So the only way you can fight lies is with the truth. How do you fight lies? You tell the truth, and you have to tell it as often and as intensely as the lies that are leveled against you. And that requires an effort. It's like another battlefield, And I'm doing this podcast, among other things, to reach young people.
Of course.
You guys are pretty young. I mean,
30 years old.
30.
30.
That's young.
Yeah. What do you think the biggest misconceptions are about Israel?
Well, first of all, they don't know what.
So we had a confirmation here, by the way, from Benjamin Netanyahu, exactly like I told you before, to come and reach the younger population on mainstream media, to come to the alternative media and social media and try and appeal to the misled and misinformed younger generation that are being lied to. Number one, it's not just the younger generation. The majority of Americans are not with you anyway. Secondly, you're talking about population on social media. I'll give you an example. Me. Most of my viewers are over 55. The vast majority of them. So, relating social media to only younger generation is misleading, by the way, because many of the older generation are resorting to social media to counter the garbage on mainstream and corporate media. This isn't a case about the younger generation. The older generation have already changed their mind about this genocidal entity. And that's what Benjamin Netanyahu is reaching to. And he's confirming that he's coming to this podcast, to these people who have over 2 million subscribers on YouTube, using their platform to reach the younger generations. And of course, we can go to the comment section later on. You can, because when you see that video, you see the comment section, it shows you exactly what people think, both of Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel, and of these people who gave him a platform. Social media platforms are supposed to be the counter punch to the corporate and mainstream media. Yet these people are deliberately poisoning them by bringing someone like Benjamin Netanyahu.
Kind of an open society. It is how pluralistic. I mean, we live in the heart of the Middle East, okay? Iran is not that far away. In Iran, they hang gays by cranes. In Israel, probably Tel Aviv.
They hang children on a daily basis.
Tel Aviv is one of the the most open, liberal-minded city on earth. Israel is a high.
We visited there, yeah.
It's completely different.
Very liberal. They're very, very liberal. I mean, they kill people in quite an equal manner. So yeah, they do focus on children and killing infants, but they are very fair and equal in killing. So they will kill elderly, they will kill men, they will kill women. They like killing children, right? But they try and be very, very equal. So Netanyahu, he has a point there.
Our assistant's gay too. He had a good time.
Well, you can vouch.
Yeah, no, we all had a good time.
So, I mean, look at that. How about women? Okay. Women in Iran, they shoot the women. They shot this extraordinarily brave and beautiful woman.
Propaganda, right? Women in Iran are walking freely, having fun.
Shot on the sidewalk because she showed too much hair. In Israel, women are, you know what?
Go to a recent video in Tehran, by the way, and see how many women walk without anything on their head. If you believe this garbage.
Women, I'll tell you what the difference is, okay? So I had this young woman officer in my military secretariat. You know, the prime minister has military secretariat, and usually has a general and it has staff assistants. One of the staff assistants was this young woman pilot, navigator, on leave from the Air Force to do this work in the prime minister's office. You know what she did now? She was flying over the skies of Tehran, attacking this horrible regime.
Killing children and women in Tehran, because that's also part of the equality of Israel and the liberal mindset of Zionism. You don't just kill people in one geographical area, you increase the killing to more areas so that more countries can enjoy the equality of Zionism and liberal Israel, not just in Palestine. They kill people also in Lebanon, in Syria, in Yemen, and in Tehran. And who knows, if you're in the US or maybe they'll come to you one day.
That tyrannizes the women in Tehran. That's the difference. The women there get shot on the sidewalk, and an Israeli woman pilot helps
shoot children everywhere inside of the Gaza Strip, and people looking to get a cup of flour because they've been starving for months now, and they're dying due to starvation.
Liberate Iran, quite the women of Iran. And boy, that's a big difference. And that's true of everything. It's true of nightlife. It's true of the startup nation, the incredible ingenuity and entrepreneurship, incredible freedom. Israel is a paragon of freedom in an area that doesn't exactly enjoy freedom. And to have young Americans march and support these mass rapists, these people who beheaded men, who burned babies alive. I'm talking about the Hamas
propaganda. Yeah.
Monsters. Is that their ideal? They don't know nothing. I mean, they don't know what they're talking about. And I want to bring that truth to them. So Israel is a great free society and the best partner that America has anywhere on earth.
Great people there.
That's why they imprison and beat and prevent people from expressing their views and opinion. And if someone shares something on social media in Israel that criticizes the genocide in Gaza, they get a knock on the door by the brutal police of his main ally and the man in charge of the police, Itamar Ben-Gvir, and they send them to prison, whether they are from the Palestinian minority inside of occupied Palestine, or if they're Jewish professors in Hebrew and Jewish universities inside of Israel. They are exceptionally free. So I'm just giving you more details from what Benjamin Netanyahu wants to say, because he's not like giving everything. So I'll elaborate further.
For sure. When we visited, everyone was so welcoming and people were inviting us over for dinner.
Absolutely. That's called the propaganda tour. And there have been many cases of people invited to Israel trying to be blackmailed, such as the case with Jake Shields, by the way. If you heard Jake Shields' testimony, when he went to Israel, they tried to hook him up with an underage girl as part of the, one of the Epsteinish networks in Israel. He refused, but they tried. And they bring people and influencers to Israel, of course, and they welcome them, right? But they ask them to do a couple of favors, write a couple of few things, on your X account or on YouTube. Say how amazing Israel is. Maybe we'll take you to an IDF base too, so that you can whitewash our child murdering genocidal army.
And stuff. But I see, that's the thing too. I'm not claiming to be an expert too, but I'll just read stuff on X, and people will say Israel's killing babies, or they're
oh no, people will say it's not that we have images and videos every minute of people in Gaza posting them because Israel prevents, Western journalists from going into Gaza. Therefore the people will live stream their own genocide. People will say someone is getting killed in Gaza, not the own people of Gaza live streaming a genocide.
They're starving people.
That's completely false. In fact, the
Completely
reason
false. Go on my feed on X and see all of the independent accounts inside of Gaza and just see for yourself.
the reason we have civilian casualties in Gaza is because Hamas,
The
who are
Hamas.
basically horrible murderers and killers, okay, committed to our destruction and your destruction. They say so openly. I mean,
What a huge lie. What a huge lie. Again, trying to appeal to Western populations by saying they're trying to kill you too. Shut up. Hamas was formed like other Palestinian movements to liberate Palestine of your ugly, hideous mugs who came to Palestine and were welcomed by the Palestinian people, only to flip against them through terror by the support of your British Empire at the time, and occupy Palestine and expel the same population that welcomed you. You lying fool. And again, he's going unchallenged, by the way, by these Nelk boys. Sitting there like idiots. Oh no, we're hearing some people saying that someone is getting killed in Gaza. Is that true, Mr. Israeli Prime Minister, who's actually killing them? What is he going to tell you that's true? Of course he's not going to tell you that's true.
They say the big enemy, the real enemy, the great Satan is America.
Mhm.
And Israel is the small Satan. But it's a small Satan that is standing in their way of conquering with other Iranian proxies, conquering the Middle East, and then we move on to you. So America is the great Satan. And America, needs to disappear. And we stand in their way. But one of the things you have to understand is Gaza is the densest urban environment you can find, and Hamas embeds itself in the civilian population of Gaza.
Because Israel doesn't allow them to go out. Firstly, Gaza has 73% refugees population. Israel made them refugees from 1948 and 1967. Their original homes are in occupied Palestine, what is now called Israel. They used to live in areas like Be'er Saba, Yafa, Haifa, Ramli, other villages in Palestinian towns that the Zionist thugs came and burnt and murdered and occupied and ethnically cleansed the population from. And they have been under siege since 2005. They're not able to go out or in unless it's with Israeli authorization. Many people died in Gaza even when there was no war, simply because Israel wouldn't allow them to go outside of the Gaza Strip to seek medical treatment. The highest numbers of children trauma cases in the whole world in a ratio was in Gaza back in 2005. You can imagine the numbers now. But Benjamin Netanyahu sees fit to blame Hamas for the whole situation.
So meant the Palestinians, okay? We tell the Palestinians, hey, leave. Because after they butchered us.
Liar. Liar. Everything is good. They don't allow them to leave. And again, he's going to go on about this whole garbage that Hamas prevents them from leaving.
And raped our women and beheaded our men and burnt our babies. We have to remove this threat. So we come in to take care of the Hamas terrorists. But the Hamas terrorists don't leave the civilian neighborhoods. And we say to the civilians, we call them up because
no fight that has been published by Israel and by the Palestinian resistance showed any fighting in a populated area in the past 2 years. All of the fighting is in areas that Israel destroyed and removed the population from, and the Palestinian resistance publishes videos from those locations.
we have their telephone numbers. We say, leave, please leave. We send them leaflets, millions of leaflets, please leave.
And from an Israeli perspective, by the way, that's the justification for genocide. We ask you to leave, as if they're entitled to tell someone to leave their home. And if you decide not to leave your home, although many people have already moved from one place to another 20 times, and they get killed on their way when they leave and when they arrive to the safe location, and Israel is still using that to justify killing innocent people. And you have this wanted war criminal on this despicable podcast trying to spew venom and legitimize it. And again, he's going on unchallenged, as if you know that's perfectly fine. And Mr. War Criminal is explaining the situation to the two idiots who don't know really what's happening, but they see people on X saying that Israel is starving people in Gaza.
We do everything that is possible that no army has done. They want to leave. You know what Hamas does? They shoot them. You say, we want you to stay because we want to have civilian casualties, because then they can show it on CNN or all these other networks and so on and claim that Israel is deliberately doing this. We're not deliberately doing anything. We'd like them to leave. And in fact, successively during the war, it's been
They're not deliberately doing it. They're just confirming outright that they are deliberately doing it, like Benjamin Netanyahu's primary allies in his government, who outright speak about depopulating Gaza, about the fact that the enemies in Gaza are the babies, are the children, that the whole population is hostile and need to be completely killed. So, Netanyahu wouldn't really say that outright, not, of course, on a podcast to appeal to the young Western populations. But, he'll tell you that we're not really intending to kill them. And again, he's going on unchallenged.
Now, a year and a half, they finally do leave, most of them. So we've minimized those casualties. But it's not because we seek to have civilian casualties. It's because Hamas wants them. They're willing to sacrifice their own children, their own families, both because they don't really care for human life, but also because they think it's very good propaganda against us. And if they just let them leave the war zone, get to the safe parts, safe havens that we've created in Gaza, no one would be hurt. And the minute Hamas lays down its arms, surrenders, maybe we let them leave.
We'll kill people more easily.
Gaza, that's the end of the war. No one gets hurt.
What would your message be to Palestinians that just want to have like a peaceful life?
Get rid of Hamas. Help us get rid of Hamas. They torment you. They oppress you. They shoot you in the back of the head. If you want to leave the war zone, they kill you. And if you say a word in protest, they'll kill you. If you're gay, you're in bad shape, really bad shape. And if you are a woman, you're chattel, you're nothing. Your property. That's the opposite of everything we believe in. I say, it's not only Israel, it's you. Mm-hmm. So we're the same.
How do you respond to, I'd say there's a lot of American support from the females, from the gays towards Palestine. So how does that make any sense?
That's, gays for Gaza is like chickens for KFC. That's insane. The whole thing is absurd. Chickens for KFC, right? Gays for Gaza, or women for the women of Gaza. What are you talking about? They're completely subjugated. They've got this death cult that is
typical stereotypes. Death cult. I think he took that from me, by the way. A genocidal satanic death cult. And one thing, by the way, don't mention that the highest ratio of pedophile per capita is in where.
So you can push this stuff on TikTok or whatever on the stuff, but you can't build peace or security on the rocks. They'll crash. These things will crash on the rocks of Middle Eastern realities. You can only build peace on truth and reality, not on deliberate, falsified fantasy.
Why do they say Israel's starving the people of Gaza?
Well, because we're trying to get the food in.
Why do they say? Not why is there a starvation campaign, as we have seen and the whole world has seen, by evidence of people being starved to death and reaching the highest level of malnutrition in Gaza. And listen to Netanyahu.
And we let food trucks in, and guess what happens when we let them in?
Of course. Not that they're depraved, squatting settlers. They stop them before they arrive to Gaza. And when they arrive, they go into a concentration camp with a 15-minute window with a light system, similar to, far worse than Squid Games, by the way. Thousands of people going to get a few hundred aid packages. The thieves collaborating with Israel steal them to sell them at a really high cost in Gaza. Then the genocide soldiers start shooting them, including American mercenaries in Gaza, in case you don't know, or you want to be, willfully blind or ignorant about that fact too.
Hamas steals the food, takes the good chunk for itself, then sells at inflated prices. They jack up the...
Israel stopped the activity of the UNRWA, which was the main organization supplying the aid in Gaza independently. Why would they do that? So that they can starve the population. Israel introduced this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation in Gaza with these American mercenaries operating there and also shooting at Palestinians with a clear license to kill, in the words of one of them, by the way, who exposed them, to starve the population. And they probably, by the way, in Israel, they probably joke about them. And they do. Actually, some people post videos mocking the starving population. But those who actually implement the policies of the genocide terror army, they sit there and laugh. They talk casually about running over hundreds of Palestinians. They talk casually about shooting babies and women and men and children for fun. But that's, again, not something that Benjamin Netanyahu would want to describe in detail in this podcast, apart from the fact that he says that we are equal and we, have equality in the murder of people, or at least an attempt of an equality.
Prices, and then they sell the food to its population, to its hungry population, if they give them at all, and then use the money that they take from their own people to recruit more killers into their terror machine. That's what happens.
Why are more Palestinians not siding with Israel against Hamas then?
Well, up to now they've been terrorized, but guess what's happened since we're...
It's a very interesting question. That is such a deep question. Why aren't the Palestinians siding with Israel? Why aren't the Palestinians siding with the side that kills them? Why aren't the Palestinians siding with the side that destroyed their homes? Why aren't the Palestinians siding with the side that starves them to death? That's such a very deep question that only comes out from the mouth of a very highly intellectual person. Such an intelligent question. Why don't they side with you? So I have someone coming and killing me and my family, and why wouldn't I side with him? Because he can help me. And Netanyahu will, of course,
Hamas,
continue to elaborate.
All of a sudden, we see Palestinians rising. You have to see this to believe this, okay? And they say to Hamas, hey, you're not coming into my building. You can't use my school or this hospital as your command post. We're not letting you. And they start fighting them. Now we have actually armed conflict between Palestinians and terrorists. It was unimaginable.
He's talking about the ISIS group inside of Gaza that Israel supports. Israel supports an ISIS-linked group in Gaza led by a man called Yasser Abu Shabab in an area that Israel occupies. Criminals, thieves, after they carried out a strike on the prison of Gaza, like they carried out a strike on the prison in Tehran to release criminals and wreak havoc and chaos. And when they fled, and some of them had previous ties with Israel and were operating with Israel, they joined the Israeli occupied parts, especially in the southern part of the Gaza Strip, protected by Israel and the Israeli genocide forces. This is what he's talking about. He's not talking about any population. The vast majority of the population of the Gaza Strip supports independence, supports resistance, supports expelling the terror army from the Gaza Strip. And that's why Israel tried to multiple times to counter that by having certain deal with like leaders of influence in society, but they failed time after time up until it reached a stage where they sought the assistance of ISIS inside of Gaza to help them carry out their mission. And now Benjamin Netanyahu on the Full Send podcast is saying that these people are moving up against Hamas without stating that they're operating with Israel and that these people are criminals tied to ISIS directly, as even confirmed by Israel itself.
A year and a half ago. But now there are Palestinians who rise up. And, you know, the more the better, because we can create a different future for Gaza. And we should also do something very simple that President Trump said, and it was brilliant. So that's my idea. That's how he cuts to the chase. He says, you know, at the end of this war, the people of Gaza should have the choice. If they want to leave for other countries, they want a freedom of choice. Why are they locked in? Hell, we're not locking them in. Anybody could leave, but Hamas is locking them in. So
it's very interesting. He wants freedom of choice for the same population he's been keeping in a concentration camp since 2005. Why didn't you give? Do you know if you ask them what's their freedom of choice, is to go back to their homes that Israel now occupies? Is Israel giving them that choice? Has Israel ever given any of the 1 million Palestinians they expelled from their homes in 1948 and 1967 and are now living in Lebanon and in Syria and in Jordan, have they ever given them the freedom of choice to go back to their lands? Or do they not, because they are a Jewish supremacy who don't want any Palestinian going back to their home? Because guess what? They were stolen by Zionist occupiers after they came and occupied Palestine. And in many cases, in thousands of cases, there was still food on the table where the families were expelled from their homes. In Haifa, in Ramli, in Yafa, in other parts of occupied Palestine, and Zionist settlers came and moved into their homes, and they are still repeating the same thing today in the West Bank, in the occupied West Bank. They'll come to a home, they'll tell you, this home is my property, I received authorization, get kicked out. The Israeli army on a regular basis goes and settles inside a Palestinian home, expelling the family because they use it as a base if they want to carry out an operation. And they don't allow the people of the home to go back. Israel destroys homes every single day, all across of Palestine, whether it's West Bank, Gaza, or Palestinians inside of occupied Palestine. That's the freedom of choice that Benjamin Netanyahu is not mentioning on the Full Send podcast, that these two idiots don't even know anything about it, but bringing this war criminal to come and whitewash all of the crimes.
suppose they want to leave. They want to go to another country, okay? Why shouldn't they have the freedom of choice to do that? Because this is all upside down, you know? The victim of this horrible terrorism is called the aggressor. The people who are oppressed by Hamas are seen as supporting Hamas. Give them a choice. Give them freedom. Give them a life and give them a future. They can't have that with these Hamas stormtroopers. But the amazing thing is, you know, I come here and I see these protests. The people who are protesting for Hamas and against Israel, they burn American flags. They not only burn the flag of Israel, they burn American flags. They're anti-American. They're not MAGA.
He's talking about the people that Israel sends to infiltrate these protests and burn American flags inside of America to portray them as anti-American, and as if everyone who goes and supports Palestine supports the Hamas. Put aside the fact that they demonize, of course, everyone who resists them. People will go out because they see a genocide, because it's clear as daylight. Yet they try and portray them as Hamas supporters, all of them, right? And then you have a separate argument even about the Hamas or the other Palestinian resistance movements, by the way, and the whole double standards when it comes to not just Israel, but its allies, in how they view every movement or every country or even every individual who dares to stand up against them and fight for their own rights.
They're not supporters. Who do they support? You know who they support? They support Iran and its proxy, Hamas or Hezbollah. What does Iran do? Just understand, people who support Iran or speak on its behalf. Iran tried to assassinate President Trump, not once, but twice.
They were
Another lie, yet another lie. And Donald Trump even repeated this propaganda. You saw who tried to assassinate Donald Trump. Yet they somehow managed to link Iran to the progress, even though they weren't even talking about Iranians, by the way. We saw exactly who tried to assassinate Donald Trump.
behind those assassination attempts.
They openly admit. By the way, they put out a price on his head, on mine too, by the way, smaller price. I'm not offended.
They actually put a price on your head?
Yeah, 2 days ago.
Do you know what it is?
You know,
Yeah, it's smaller than his, naturally. He's the president of the United States, for God's sake, okay? So they put out a fatwa 2 days ago, or 3 days ago, by the official cleric of the Iranian regime that President Trump has to be assassinated and that I have to be assassinated. And by the way, they targeted...
Oh, no, by the way, more Israelis want Benjamin Netanyahu dead than the Iranians. By the way, you know, when Hezbollah tried to assassinate Netanyahu by launching a drone that hit his home window, many in the comment section, when they heard these reports in Israel, were saying, I wish they were successful. Only if they were successful just in that. At least we've gotten rid of him and we've had a ceasefire. That's what the Israeli population, or at least many of them, used to say at that time.
Sarah, my wife, was here, and they targeted our bedroom window. Yeah, we were supposed to be there. They hit through their proxy Hezbollah. They fired a drone right into our bedroom window. So
just recently?
Yeah. No, it was a couple of months ago. Yeah.
Wow.
No, it was a year ago, actually. Yeah, a year ago. Okay. So how many months?
7 months.
7 months ago. She counts, you know. So they tried to assassinate President Trump twice. They've killed and injured thousands of Americans in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Because the Americans were going as tourists, by the way, in Iraq and Afghanistan. They were just visiting and, you know, planting seeds, not going there killing hundreds of thousands of people. They weren't like, why would anyone do anything to these American tourists who went to this trip to Iraq and Afghanistan, right? Again, food for thought.
Bombed American embassies. They murdered 241 Marines in Beirut.
Oh no, what were the Marines doing in Beirut? Hold on. Why? They were just going there to eat some Lebanese food, right? Isn't that the case? Why are they targeted? Why do they hate us? Why do they chant?
They chant death to America, death to Israel. They're out to get America. They're building they were building atomic bombs and intercontinental ballistic missiles. That's their plan to reach America. So do you want these mad Ayatollahs to have that power? Of course not. So they're anti-American, they're anti-Israel. And the guys who protest, and many of them are paid and organized by foreign NGOs, bad people. They're out against America. They hate Israel because they see Israel as part of America. And, you know, in many ways, they're right.
I'm just trying to figure it out too, because even in New York City, right?
This is another thing, by the way, that many in American podcasts totally ignore. They talk about this hate to America or the chants against America, which are primarily initiated by countries who suffered from American terrorism inside their own countries and in their regions, and they ignore all of the American actions altogether. As a matter of fact, you'll find them glorifying American genocidal barbaric wars in West Asia and all across the world, and then complaining about refugees and refugee crisis. That's another problem, by the way, that many are either willfully blind to or willfully ignorant to, or it's just more convenient to them not to address the situation whatsoever.
What's Zoran?
Yeah.
He's an anti-Semitic guy.
Yeah.
The highest, I think the highest population of Jews in New York City. How's that even possible?
Well, it's possible because a lot of people have been taken in by this nonsense. I mean, what, you want to defund the police? You want to have people go into stores and, rob them and be free? You think that really creates a good society? You want to crush all enterprise? You want to tax people to death? I mean,
He's offended because Zohran Mamdani did not say that he's going to visit Israel as his first trip. As if he should, the pilgrimage, and put his head against the wall and go and lick Netanyahu and Israeli leaders' shoes and bow down. So they got offended. But if he had all of the policies that Netanyahu has spoken about, and he supports Israel, that would be wonderful. He would have amazing reforms, and he would be the person to run the city, and he would be the ideal individual. Only because he does not bow down to the Zionists.
That's a one-term effort, but sometimes you have to get mugged by reality to understand how stupid that is. So that's silly, but sometimes folly overtakes human affairs for a while, but not for long, because reality steps in. So I'm obviously not happy with it, but I'm less concerned with it, because I think if we can speak the truth to the young people of America, they wise up pretty quickly.
Is the war with Iran, is it over now? After President Trump did authorize the strike and they destroyed the nuclear program,
It certainly helped. It did, but I'll tell you what happened. We were like a person with 2 lumps of cancer, okay, that threatened our life. The first one's the nuclear cancer. Would have taken them within a year, they would have had atomic bombs, which they openly declared in the tyrants of Tehran. They said, we're going to destroy Israel, the Jewish state.
He's been saying, by the way, that Iran would have a nuclear bomb for the past 3 decades. What am I talking about? Israel has been saying that Iran is only a few steps away from a nuclear bomb since the 80s.
The other threat that we had, another lump of cancer, was these ballistic missiles. Now, you got to understand, this is like a bus. So with a ton of TNT, explosives, comes
and
down
of course, Netanyahu here, what he's hiding is the fact that they were hit so hard by Iran that they had to request the United States for this attack, and Donald Trump stepped in to take Israel out of the situation because they could no longer handle the continued attacks that are coming from Iran. I'll continue my comment on this video. This is the first part. I'll see you in the other part.